Okay, so dimension one of power. Howard sociology calls it agency. Fleming and Spicer in organization theory call it coercion. And these are the kinds of things that are included. It's the direct mobilization of power. So it can be violence, coercion, authority, and control over economic and material resources. And that can be including things like the ability to pay you or fire you. And what else have they got here? Force of personality, the ability to reduce uncertainty. So the person who makes decisions, possession of valuable resources. Howard stresses that there is a difference between power resources, which are kind of like potential power, and the exercise of power, which is when you use your agency to activate those power resources, like put them in action, exercise them. It's just handy language. So here's some dimension 1 or 1D power violence, the attack on Iran in June last year, actually. Again, violence. Here is also agency, direct action, going out there and doing something, not violent. It's just saying no. So voice is part of agency. Authority is a big one. Authority is often accepted as a legitimate form of power, but as we know, not all leaders or not all people in authority use their resources of power in an ethical or a helpful way, let's say. So here's Donald Trump and his big, beautiful bill. He has the power to get it through the Senate because of the way that their parliament is structured, which is dimension 2. And the other reason that authority is a very significant dimension 1 power is that people in authority often have access to other resources of power like money, material resources, the ability to make decisions and reduce uncertainty, force of personality. So they often have more than one of the first dimension power resources, and they often have rules and policies and all sorts of things, which is dimension 2, also working for them. And further than that, dimension 3, which is the social construction of reality, we all know that when the boss says you got to do something, you got to do it. So this is not actually a fact of life. This is something that we have come to believe to be true. And this is what social construction of reality is about. So a person in a position of authority is in a very powerful position because of the combination of all those dimensions. Coercion is another word for dimension 1. In Gaza, the people have been starved and denied water. And the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists say that this denial of entry for aid, imposed hunger, and depriving people of water is low tech, but a devastatingly effective form of coercion. You can make people do anything if they need that water desperately enough. You can also silence your political enemies through first dimension power by hitting out on social media, for example. This is an interesting podcast about how Donald Trump has silenced his political enemies. We've also got Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong, our defence minister. Sorry. She's not Defence Minister. International Affairs. Foreign Minister. Thank you. So basically saying we're not going to do anything against what Trump says because have you seen what he's like when he's angry? This is coercion. Again, Rupert Murdoch has forced retribution. You can get Murdocked by the Murdoch papers, as Jim Chalmers did after the budget. Here's another one of First Dimension. When it talked about resolving uncertainty, this leads to asymmetry of information. So this is an interesting 2-minute video you might like to watch about AI-powered dynamic pricing, so surveillance pricing, when companies would charge you and I a completely different price depending on our cookies and the way that we interact and buy things online and where we live and everything like that. Because they know more about us than we know about them, that gives them more power than us. Here we've got One Nation banning media outlets from their events. Again, that is direct agency. But let's think about it in a more positive light. Alice Walker says that the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. And we are not going to think like that. Okay, so this couple, this is a short video. Have a look at it. It's 3 minutes long. Who owned this station up north in WA, and they stopped running cattle on it and they started regenerating the land, the vegetation and whatnot. And instead of making money from cattle, they now make money from homestays and taking people on eco tours and whatnot. So they use their agency to do something positive for the environment. And I saw this one this week. A Florida couple bought a 45-acre swamp to protect it from being developed. And now, 15 years later, they've restored it basically by hand, and it's thriving as an ecosystem for wildlife. What these two examples, the Woolleen Station and the Tallahassee one, have in common is that the people had ownership of the land. Now, that has been bestowed upon them with 2D legal structural power. There's also a non-profit in the eastern states of Australia that buys land, changes the conditions on the title deed so that people can't knock any more trees down, and then they sell it again and they buy another piece of land. So that's their way of protecting. And they build they're building wildlife corridors so that the birds and the marsupials and the kangaroos and the koalas can join with other populations. And here's a very sad instance of agency, also structural power as well. Rio Tinto blew up the Juukan Gorge to get the iron ore out. Aboriginal people were saying, please don't blow up the gorge. The decision to do this went on for 6 years. 6 years, and they still made a bad decision. But the thing was, it was a legal decision. They went through the process, but then once they did it, what they realized was that it was not the ethical thing to do or the responsible thing to do. The CEO had to quit, and board members had to quit, and they had to apologize and everything, but it's too late. It's already done. So this is the problem with agency when you jump in and do things. Anyway, that one was an exam question to talk about this situation. That's the last one here. So those are all first D, but as you can see, they tend to bleed into other dimensions of power as well.